Hi, I'm Laura DePietro-Standen and welcome to the Plant Power Revolution. And today I want to talk about the standard American diet and why it is ruining your life. Because everyone knows that the standard American diet, or most people know that it's not healthy for you, but they don't understand what's actually happening in your body. So I want to explain that process and how getting out of the matrix of the standard American diet, how that can lead to your personal empowerment and in weight loss, obviously. So the standard American diet basically means what the average American is eating. And in our country that also, or in our continent that also includes Canada. So a lot of the developed countries are eating this way. So in the United States, though, we're talking about 70% processed foods, 25% meat and dairy, and about 5% fruits and vegetables. So when I say processed food, I mean things that aren't in their natural form, things that you're getting in packages, fast foods. I can remember back in the day, I used to make, those boxes of scalloped potatoes. So there's lots of hamburger helper, all of these things that are processed, breads, pastries, cereals. And all of that is included in the processed foods. And like I said, including the fast food as well. Then you have 25% meat, dairy, and eggs. And then 5% fruits and vegetables is really mostly white potato and corn. And technically corn is a grain, which, makes sense, right? If you look at the way it grows. And so that is where we stand. And there's a couple of reasons why it is so bad for you. But first, let me explain what your diet is supposed to look like. So if you go to pretty much any site, whether you're talking about, the Heart Association or the Diabetes Association or, the Cancer Society, you're going to see them recommending 50% fruits and vegetables in your diet. That's what even the FDA plate, at USDA.gov, that is 50% fruits and vegetables. So it's very different from what we're actually eating. It's actually, we only need about 25% of protein, about 20% grain, and then the rest fats. So it doesn't make any sense the way that we're eating in this country for health. It's obvious that it's destroying our health to be eating 5% fruits and vegetables as opposed to 50%. So that is one really obvious explanation. You're not getting the same amount of fiber. Most of the people in the United States are only getting about a third of the fiber that they need, which is what's protective against colon cancer. As you know, I don't know how old people are watching this, but for me, when I was growing up, you barely heard of anyone getting colon cancer, and you definitely didn't have to have a colonoscopy once you turned 50 and every year after that. That wasn't a thing because we weren't seeing the rates of colon cancer that we're seeing now. Fiber is also protective against cancer, against diabetes, against heart disease. So the fact that we don't have enough fiber in our lives is a huge issue. We're also not getting the nutrition that we need because the fruits and vegetables are nutritional powerhouses, as you know. So if you're barely getting any of those in your life, then you can be getting tons of calories but actually be nutrient deficient. So that's part of the issue. The other issue is that all processed foods, it is completely legal for them to employ something they call the bliss point. The bliss point is the exact measurement of salt, sugar, and fat in a product to make it addictive to the human palate. So they can actually, they do millions of dollars in clinical studies on this, not just for processed foods like you might see in the store, processed pastries and cereals and chips and things like that, but also combinations of foods that you might see like the number one at your favorite fast food joint, right? So they do these types of tests to make sure that these are as addictive as they can possibly be to keep you coming back for more. And so it's so insidious because if someone says to you, hey, do you want to try some heroin? We all know that that's highly addictive. You know that even if you were to consider it, there's a chance you could get addicted right away and that your life would be ruined, right? But none of these products that I'm telling you about, they don't have to disclose that they have been testing the bliss point, and almost all of them have. So it can become addictive, and it's slowly killing you, and it's slowly taking over your life, and you don't realize it because you didn't know about this. So those are the things about the standard American diet that are so harmful. And there's a lot more that's harmful about it when you look at things like the environment and all of that, but that's just a surface thing talking about your personal health. And because it's addictive, it is so hard to get away from. And modern diets know that. So when you start a diet where you're counting points, for example, that is recommending to you that you need 3 servings of dairy a day, they're sponsored by the Dairy Council. Okay, and you basically, what you're being told you can do is just cut back on the foods that you're addicted to, so that you're depriving yourself of calories, and that calorie deficit is going to result in weight loss. The problem is you can't sustain it because, as we know with any addiction, eventually it rears its head again. So I know that, when I was counting points, I realized that a number one would not fit in my points for the day, but I could still go get a cheeseburger and fries. And that would fit into my points during the day. And so that's what I would do. Except then I'd go and I was having a bad day, and that number one smelled so good when I pulled up to the drive-thru, and I would make a promise to myself that that's all I would eat for the whole day. I would start bargaining with myself. And that's how people fall off the wagon, right? It's just not sustainable because you're still in that matrix. You're still thinking, okay, I can eat these foods and still be healthy. I can eat these foods and be thin, because nobody watches a fast food commercial where they're showing a bunch of depressed, obese people, right? They're always showing people that are really energetic, they're laughing, they're there with their friends, they're having a great time, they're thin and fit, but that's not the reality of it, and we all know that. So it's, then you have the low carb movement, right? Which I also tried. I did low carb and even ketosis for a while, and I did lose weight. But the problem is, again, what that diet is doing is telling you what you want to hear. It's saying, hey, you can eat all the bacon and all the cheese that you want. You don't have to eat vegetables, and hey, that's great, right? Because you don't really like them that much. You can just eat a few of these vegetables, and the weight is just going to fall off, and it does for a while. But the problem is it's not sustainable. And so what happens is, because your brain is carbohydrate obligate, because that is your body's main source of fuel. And by the way, nature is not going to design us to be obese, right? So it's not carbohydrates. That's going to be a separate video, but it's not the carbohydrates that are making you fat. It is the junk food. But we're convinced that this is the way to go. We lose the weight, but we start to not be able to sustain it. We go, again, off the wagon. We gain all the weight back plus more. And over the years, whether you're doing this, or you're counting points and calories, or you're doing, God forbid, the shakes and supplements movement, which again, hundreds of dollars every month in shakes and supplements. There's just absolutely no evidence that is a long-term solution, and there's definitely evidence that it's harmful. So you do these things, you fall off, you gain the weight, you gain a little bit more, and over the years you're getting heavier and heavier and sicker and sicker. And so that is, like I said, if it's like the Matrix, if if you've seen that movie, it's being in a system where you don't realize that you're in it. And once you take a step back and realize, okay, I can see how all of this is keeping me trapped in the diet industry, which is, makes about $1 trillion a year. I'm not exaggerating. Worldwide, you can see that it's also fueling the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry. Once you realize that you can remove yourself from that and that at least 85% of our illnesses and disorders and diseases and obesity is completely due to our lifestyle and what we're eating. Once you start to realize those things, you can remove yourself. And when you do, it is so empowering. There is a great book out there that I recommend to everyone called Salt, Sugar, Fat. It's by a prize-winning journalist, Michael Moss. You can get that at the library. It's been out for a while. You can get it, on the Amazon, and it really describes the really dishonest and insidious way that the industry works. I remember when I finally said to my son, because he was very small when I went plant-based and when I started to get my health together. And like many moms, I would still take him through the drive-through if he wanted to go to McDonald's. And I remember having a talk with him and saying, okay, honey, we're not going to get this kind of food anymore. And I know I don't normally get anything when we go through the drive-through, but honestly, it's not healthy for you either. This kind of food really hurts people, and it makes them obese, and it sets them up for food addiction, and it causes heart disease and diabetes and all of these things. And I want you to develop healthier habits now. So, I just want you to understand why we're not going through the drive-through anymore. And he sat there for a second, and then he said, so are you saying they're trying to hurt us? And I said, no, honey, I'm not. I'm saying they just don't care. And he thought about it for a second, and he said, well, can I still go through the drive-thru and get the toy? And I said, okay. And we ended up actually making another deal that was even better after that. But the point is that, even children can understand this. And before they become addicted to the food. After that, it's just as hard for them as it is for us. But we all have to step away from this idea that all good things in moderation. Moderation doesn't work for anyone. You can't have any amount of poison in moderation. You can have an amazing amount of food and really delicious food on a plant-based diet. I have always been a girl who loves to eat. I have never been, I will have a small salad and a Diet Coke type of girl. I have always been a big eater, and I really enjoy food. And, like in our cookbook, this is the way that we eat. We have things like barbecue bean tacos with pineapple salsa and stroganoff. We have meaty mushroom stroganoff. We have stir fries. We have tempeh Reuben sandwiches. I mean, we have all of this really amazing food. We had for Thanksgiving, not this past year, but the year before, we had a jackfruit mushroom gravy over mashed potatoes and buttermilk biscuits. This past year, we had country fried tofu steaks with country gravy, which was to die for. So it's amazing what is out there, things I never would have thought I would eat. And you just have to open your mind to new possibilities. But once you get there, what you realize is that the food tastes better. It's not addictive. You don't get hangry like you did before. I used to sit in my car and eat a whole box of donuts because my sugar addiction was so bad. I eat sweets now, but they're natural sweets, and I don't get addicted to them like that. So it's still enjoying your life. It's still having amazing food. It's still being able to go to a cookout, go to a tailgate. You can still have brats and burgers and all of these amazing plant-based foods that are out there that a lot of times you definitely can't even tell the difference between that and a meat-based product. So you can definitely make the switch, do it in a healthy way where you're indulging but still able to be vibrantly healthy and lose the weight and get out of the standard American diet matrix. So hopefully I've given you something to think about. We will also talk about this in terms of what it does in the body as far as causing leaky gut. And that'll be my next video. We'll be talking about that and how you do not need supplements to heal your leaky gut. So don't fall for that scam either. But this is Laura DePietro stand-in. Thank you so much for joining in. You can join my private Facebook group for women if you like. It's called the Inner Strength Army. Again, on Facebook, it's completely free. So just request to join, and you'll get lots more information there. So have a great day. This has been the Plant Power Revolution. Stay strong.